Listen, right at this very moment, you might be lying in your own bedroom. The door is shut tight, and the lights are out. Perhaps your partner is lying right beside you, or perhaps you are completely alone. Either way, no one can see you, and no one can hear you. You are entirely invisible to the rest of the world. You have probably never given it much thought, but this experience of being alone is actually one of the greatest and most luxurious inventions in human history. Privacy, the exact state you find yourself in right now, is one of the newest creations in the chronicle of the human species. It emerged later than agriculture, later than the wheel, and even later than the written word. For the vast majority of human history spanning 300,000 years, a moment of solitude like the one you are enjoying right now wasn't just a rare experience that was difficult to arrange, it simply could not exist. And the ultimate paradox lies here: our ancient ancestors, who spent their entire lives in environments devoid of any privacy, did not suffer from its absence. Instead, it is we, who have taken privacy to its absolute extreme, who are quietly enduring the agony of loneliness. This brings up a baffling question: how on earth did ancient humans navigate their entire lives, sleeping, daily routines, and every facet that makes us human, when they had zero privacy? The answer is far more sophisticated than you might expect, and it hits incredibly close to home. For the first 290,000 years of human existence, the entire radius of your life was only about 15 meters. This is not a hyperbolic metaphor. In 1992, Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist at Oxford University, published a groundbreaking study. Synthesizing decades of field observations from every recorded hunter-gatherer tribe across the globe, he reached a striking conclusion: members of ancient tribes maintained an extreme physical proximity to one another at almost all times. For the vast majority of their waking hours, the distance between individuals rarely exceeded 15 meters. 15 meters is roughly the length of a single public transit bus. Imagine 15 to 50 people spending every single moment of their lives inside the confines of that bus. They slept together, ate meat around the exact same campfire, and migrated as a single unit. There were no walls, no rooms, no personal territories stamped with your name, and absolutely no partitions of any kind to separate your life from anyone else's. If you got into an argument with your partner, 40 people were right there enjoying the drama. If you fell ill, 40 people noticed before you even opened your mouth to complain. If you felt a surge of desire, you had to find a way to navigate it within this tiny 15-meter circle, with absolutely nowhere to hide. Here is a detail that completely upends our modern assumptions: this life of zero privacy was not a miserable plight reserved for the poor or the unfortunate. The strongest hunters in the tribe lived this way, the most revered elders lived this way, and even the chief lived this way. Not a single individual in the group possessed a private space, because the very concept did not exist. Instead, they possessed something far more advanced: they constructed privacy out of consensus. They didn't use rigid building materials like stone, wood, or mud; rather, they relied on a communal understanding. The group collectively decided which events to acknowledge and which events to selectively ignore. In 2014, David Sampson, an anthropologist at the University of Toronto, completed a multi-year study on the sleep patterns of the Hadza people in Tanzania. The Hadza are one of the few remaining groups on Earth whose lifestyle closely mirrors that of prehistoric humans. Over long-term observations, Sampson documented 3 highly consistent behaviors that functioned like unwritten, ironclad laws in traditional tribes. The first behavior is timing. As night fell and the campfire dimmed, the social contract of the entire group quietly shifted. Darkness wasn't just a tool to block eyesight, it was a universally understood signal. Everyone knew exactly what was happening around them, but everyone tactfully acted as if they knew nothing at all. The second behavior is distance. In the near-total darkness of the dead of night, if a person silently walked 15 to 30 meters away from the sleeping crowd, they didn't need to utter a single word for everyone to understand. In an absolute darkness devoid of artificial light, a distance of 15 meters was functionally identical to being invisible. Whether in Africa, the Philippines, or Paraguay, Sampson's comprehensive research found an identical, ironclad rule across every recorded hunter-gatherer band: if you walked away, no one would follow you, and no one would spy on you. The third behavior is the most sophisticated of all, known as collective silence. This wasn't a silence born of ignorance, but rather a noble consensus among those in the know, a collective decision never to validate or acknowledge anything they saw or heard. Anthropologist Colin Turnbull, who lived with the Mbuti people of Central Africa for years, noted that the Mbuti language didn't even have a word for privacy. This wasn't because they were backwards, but because this mutual boundary of respect was already an unspoken given. You simply never judge what you choose not to see. Timing, distance, and collective silence, these three behavioral patterns required zero physical materials, yet they constructed the entire architectural framework of human private life for 290,000 years. However, roughly 10,000 years ago, the trajectory of humanity took a violent turn. Humans began to farm, which also meant settling down in fixed locations. Settling brought building, and building brought one of the greatest inventions in history, the wall. In the vast river of the human species timeline, you could finally shut a door with your own hands and place yourself in a space completely shielded from the eyes of others. But almost no history textbook will tell you the truth about that monumental shift. This was not an unconditional liberation, it was a brutal trade-off. In 1996, Ian Hodder, an archaeologist at Cambridge University, published a landmark analysis of Çatalhöyük. Located in modern-day Turkey, this 9,000-year-old agricultural settlement provides some of the earliest known examples of permanent human housing. He discovered to his shock that as humans transitioned from open, communal living to enclosed family spaces separated by walls, markers of interpersonal conflict experienced a massive spike. For instance, skeletal trauma resulting from violence between individuals, as well as damage on aggressive tools, became noticeably more frequent. Walls certainly granted people absolute spatial separation, but they also handed them boundaries that needed to be defended and fought for. Privacy birthed the exclusive concept of mine. And the moment something became mine, it meant someone else could come to steal it, triggering conflict. Even after the advent of walls, for the vast majority of human history, privacy remained an incredibly expensive luxury. In medieval Europe, it was standard for an entire family to crowd into a single room to live. Travelers at inns would sleep in the same bed with complete strangers, servants slept directly on the floor at the foot of their master's bed. Even as recently as the 19th century, it was perfectly normal for ordinary children to share a single mattress with 3 or 4 siblings. The independent, private bedroom you woke up in this morning only truly became a standard feature of ordinary life about 90 to 100 years ago. In the grand 300,000-year sweep of human history, this accounts for a mere 0.03%. Yet, during this seemingly insignificant 0.03% of time, something completely unprecedented began to manifest in modern humans. Today, the amount of time an average adult in a developed nation spends in absolute solitude is longer than at any other point in our 300,000-year history. We possess physical privacy that far surpasses anything our ancestors could have dreamed of. But what is the result? The World Health Organization has officially classified loneliness as a global public health crisis. The number of close friends people report having has plunged to the lowest point in recorded history. In every modernized country that has achieved flawless privacy, rates of depression, anxiety, and social isolation are skyrocketing. The walls did exactly what they were designed to do. We obtained all the secrecy we wanted when we built them. However, our disconnection and estrangement from one another have also reached the absolute peak in the history of the human species. Ancient humans never had a door they could slam shut whenever they pleased, so they used the only material they had on hand to build security, each other. We built high walls later on to protect our families, but over the long march of time, we forgot what we were originally trying to shield. The Mbuti people have no word for privacy because privacy doesn't need to be given a name when it is an intrinsic part of how you live. What they truly needed to name were their relationships, every single person, every role, and every emotional bond in the tribe. Their language boasts hundreds of words to define these connections with pinpoint accuracy. We modern humans, by contrast, can use hundreds of terms to describe various types of rooms and floor plans, yet we struggle to find the words to accurately describe the profound emptiness we feel deep down inside when we sit completely alone in these perfect, private rooms. For 290,000 long years, humans were never truly isolated. They found ways to enjoy intimacy without cutting themselves off from the world. They built closeness not by turning their backs on the group, but by trusting the group implicitly. Eventually, we built these high walls with our own hands. And ever since, we have been peering over these cold, frozen structures, desperately trying to find each other.